Thank you very much, Ambassador Mark Green, for being here with me to talk about Venezuela, humanitarian aid, and the prospects, the democratic prospects of the country. So over in your role at USAID, you had to make a lot of decisions and to help, and you helped a lot of people and approved a lot of funding towards Venezuela, both inside the country and towards neighboring countries. Over 5.4 million people have left the country, according to the UN. The GDP of Venezuela has declined in 76% since 2013, according to the IMF. And people on average have lost 24 pounds, according to the National Survey of Living Conditions. Ambassador Green, what do you make of what's going on in Venezuela? And what have been the efforts that USAID led during your administration?
Well, first off, in terms of what's happening, it's an absolute travesty and a humanitarian catastrophe on historic proportions. So the flight of Venezuelans to Colombia and beyond is the largest mass migration event in the history of the Western Hemisphere. And it shows you just how deep the problems are inside Venezuela. What we have tried to do in my tenure at USAID is twofold. First is we provide resources to host communities who are generously hosting Venezuelans who've been forced to flee Maduro and his tyranny. So maybe communities in Colombia along the border or elsewhere, helping them with the costs of providing nutrition, food support, emergency medical assistance. In many cases, we work through faith-based organizations like Caritas, or we may work through the World Food Program. The good friend of mine, David Beasley, in the World Food Program, doing tremendous work. So that's part of what we tried to do. Secondly, we've tried to help support the government of Juan Guaido. I've had the opportunity to meet Interim President Guaido, and I've been very impressed with how carefully he has tried to promote democracy, listen to his people, and under tremendous pressure from Maduro, I have been impressed with how he has tried to meet the needs of his people as much as possible. So that's been the approach that we've tried to take. We try to make clear to everyone our problems are with Maduro and his regime. We stand with the people of Venezuela. So we want to support them any way we can, while at the same time restricting the ability of Maduro to continue his clampdowns on the people of Venezuela.
And what's a way forward? What could be done better, both in terms of aid and in terms of international pressure against the Venezuelan regime? What do you make of what's going on, and what do you project will happen in the next few months and within the next few years?
Well, I think first off, it's important that we continue to build a regional alliance in support of the people of Venezuela and pushing back on the authoritarian, tyrannical policies and actions of the Maduro regime. So it means working with countries in the region to make sure that we help them as they try to host communities, but also recognize that there's pressure on them in many cases coming from Maduro, his oil sector, and perhaps some of his bosses in Moscow and Havana and Beijing. So it's a combination of those moves. On top of that, it's finding new innovative ways to try to provide assistance directly to people in need. Clearly, we can do it if they're forced to flee. We would hope that people aren't forced to flee, but that is a product of Maduro's policies. So for those who are left behind, we try to find ways to provide direct assistance to them. Anything that does not go through Maduro and his cronies are things that we are interested in looking at. So it's pressure on Maduro and his regime to make clear that we will not allow them to profit from the crisis, doing whatever we can to provide emergency relief to those in greatest need, and working with allies to have a united front against the tyranny of Maduro and in favor of helping the long-suffering people of Venezuela.
Thank you so much. in name of the Venezuelan people, we really appreciate all the efforts that you led in your time at USAID, and I appreciate you taking the time for this interview.
Well, you're very kind, but this is a labor of love. I have fallen in love with the people of Venezuela. They are a remarkable, character-driven people who I think have a bright future. They have an obstacle right now in Maduro, but I believe in them. I believe in the leadership of Juan Guaido, and in the long run, I believe the future is bright.